The following podcast is intended for mature audiences. If you enjoy our work, please like, comment, subscribe, and follow the links in the description. Thanks for your support, and enjoy.
Greetings and salutations, listener. It is I, Eric J. Chucci, joined, as always, by the dude slightly in a different place on the alignment chart from me, the boy.
Only slightly. Hey.
This here's the Two Nerds podcast. Before we get into shit today, and you know, I don't know, I almost wanted to say, hopefully we don't go on as long as we did last week, but that's not a bad thing, is it? You guys come here to listen to us.
Presumably.
I don't make any fucking money out of this, so...
They're just, like, holding their headphones to their ears, screeching, "Why won't this stop? How did I get stuck in this YouTube playlist?"
Fuck. Something I forgot to mention a while ago. Y'all remember when we were pimping Long Live the Axe? The wonderful person who does our theme musics. Or did, and then I asked nicely if we could use them, and they said yes. Finally released that game, Long Live the Axe. It's cheap, like $5. You can get it. Google it. Google Long Live the Axe. I think it's on itch.io. Buy it, because it does some good stuff. I forget off the top of my head what the development name is. You'll see it when you go there. Google Long Live the Axe. Also, we're going to be talking about role-playing again this week, as though that weren't already obvious. And, you know, we usually like to switch it up. We've been kind of guilty of this little...
You never know mobile gaming in Junior is going to pop up, like...
Yeah.
Like, it's good to tell them, even if
sure.
the title was probably just alignments. And no, not tires.
What if it was, though?
Yeah, it's just like an hour-long conversation of two people who know basically fuck all about cars talking about tire alignment.
Tires should go on your car.
Presumably aligned.
Yeah.
But we did it! 2 different kinds of alignment on the podcast today.
You're entirely too satisfied about that. But, you know, we kind of... I still haven't had time to sit down with the boy and watch Battle Royale.
Yeah, Netflix Roulette isn't dead. And I know some of you are probably sad about that because we see the view numbers. But we're still having a good time with it. It's just, you know.
Well, like, okay, neither is Violent Profiles, for that matter. It's one of the other shows on this channel. If you haven't checked it out and you like fighting games, you should. Just circumstances in our living situation have altered slightly. I don't have as much time to record alone, and Boy and I don't have as much time just to sit and watch a movie throughout the week. So...
Business needs to get done around the Two Nerds household at the moment. So
it's not a huge deal. It'll happen when it happens, and we're coming up on Two Nerds anniversary month and the fighting game tournament, so we'll have other stuff to talk about as well.
God, but, is it episode 200 yet? Is that a thing?
I believe this is episode 200.
Oh wow, is this episode 200 already?
I'm 99.9% sure.
I kind of wanted to do something special for episode 200, but then I didn't do anything, so... Yeah, we did it.
There.
Well, we've done...
We've reached a round number divisible by 5 and 2.
Yeah, stop being Neil deGrasse Tyson about it. This is an important milestone.
No, and it's awesome. It's awesome. We've sat down here almost every week, and when we don't, we make it up, for 200 weeks.
Yeah.
And recorded a podcast. It hasn't always been you and me. Sometimes it's you and Brandy. Sometimes it's me and Brandy, I think, once. And sometimes it's you and Billy. Not for a while, but it was for a while there. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we have special guests, but yeah, 200 episodes of Ye Old Two Nerds podcast, and we still can't find shit to talk about.
Hey! I think those two might actually be related.
Yeah, I think they might be as well. But, like, you know, there's other stuff going on in the nerd world these days. Or it's either too niche, and I don't feel like we can bother talking about it, or it's... too up in the air, and it's not worth chatting about. Also, we haven't seen Black Panther yet. Probably next week. So
I mean, I got a promise to uphold.
You do, my dude. All right, so let's get down to them shiny old tacks. So the title card is probably going to read alignments because that's really easy to get an image for that people will want to click on, and I guess when we sat down and talked about this, we were talking about your new games. And if you guys haven't seen...
The last podcast.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to the last podcast, I would recommend going back and listening to that first or after this, and it'll give you some more of the context that we're missing out on here because we're 2 weeks removed from the original conversation. You know, Boy's been running a game lately. I've been running my own game just for the Boy. And I don't know, man. Like, it feels like we've just finally come to this place where we understand a lot about running a pen and paper role-playing game that wasn't always apparent to us or wasn't something that we did as naturally as we would have liked. You know? And I think one of those things, and I complimented you for this, is the use of the evil alignment.
Yeah, okay. So, I don't, as a general rule, tend to give my players hard, rules. I don't tend to be like, you can't do this, you can't do that, I'm outlawing this. That's not how I roll.
Unless it's a Kender.
Yeah, I know, you can play a Kender, you're probably not going to get the same experience from me as a DM if you do.
Well, I mean, you're very much a consequences for your actions kind of person, and being a Kender requires that you get away with
take some
shit.
actions
Yeah.
that you will have consequences for, and the universe is not going to suddenly remove your consequences because Kender, lol. That's not how it works. But, so, some very prominent internet, role-playing personalities have in the past expressed that you shouldn't allow players to play an evil campaign because it won't go well. Well, to those people, I say, wrong. Incorrect.
Well, and I'd say wrong with a caveat. And there's a reason this is called an alignments podcast and not, running an evil campaign or shit like that. Because, man, there's 3 things that you don't bring up on the internet if you don't want to fight: religion, politics, and alignment charts.
It's just, and...
So, the way I see it, let me just go ahead and lay this on the table here real quick. Okay? There's a problem with classic D&D alignments, and that problem is lawful means you follow the rules. Okay? Good means you are generous and altruistic. Alright? Chaotic means you don't follow the rules. You may even spit in the face of the rules purely to spit in the face of the rules. And evil means you are selfish and self-interested. That's how they tend to present it, with some tweaks, in the books. Now, there are exceptions. There are exceptions to every rule. That's what makes them rules. But the way they are verbally written to tell you what an alignment is going to act like, that's what they're telling you. However, at the same time, most of the time, they use evil alignments
to mean Satan.
Yeah, from the evil plane of elemental evil. And, conceptually, that's cool, but it starts to clash with this concept of being selfish.
Yeah, okay, so there's 2 different kinds of evil. In the same way, there are a couple different kinds of good, and they actually sort of mirror one another. There are 2 different kinds of evil in that there is the person who is evil because they don't really have empathy for their fellow thinking creatures. Usually in D&D there are several different races, so I can't just say fellow human beings. But they don't have much empathy. They don't really see it from other people's perspective. They're mostly concerned with the needs of themselves and their in-group, whatever that counts as. So if it's just me and I can use an example of a video game character that was very popular a few years ago. The man, the dad from The Last of Us. I know he's not actually her dad. Calm down, internet nerds. He's evil. He's probably neutral evil, because all he really cares about is the life and well-being of himself and his in-group, that being the little girl character. Everyone else can go fuck themselves, basically. That is one version of evil. The other version of evil is someone who is actively sadistic. Someone who actively enjoys bringing suffering to others. And I separate them for a very specific reason. Someone can have a fair amount of empathy for their fellow people and still be actively sadistic. They can understand your plight, and that actually will help them find the best, most efficient way to fuck you over. That kind of evil is great for certain characters, but you have to recognize that both kinds exist.
And I think, like, theoretically, I don't want to map it out, and that's the surest way we can sit here and map it out. Theoretically, you could wedge, like, a fourth horizontal row. Lawful, neutral, selfish, evil, or something like that. Because
that's why. All right, so alignments, even D&D says this. Alignments should never be the end-all, be-all of your character. They're a guideline.
They do now. They did a little less in the past, but
nothing.
They didn't tell you to relax until 5th edition. Well, 4th edition, technically. We talked about this a little bit last week, but 2nd edition, it was pretty hard and fast. That's where, that and the 1st edition Dungeons & Dragons, that's where the people come from who are like, your character wouldn't do that. It's not in your alignment,
And that's never the right call. The call should never be, your character couldn't do that. It won't do that. It's not in their alignment. Or, as I've seen some DMs do, you're good, you're trying to do an evil action, make a will save, otherwise you won't be able to. You're not in charge of the character.
Right.
You're in charge of the world, you're the DM. The sentence should go, okay, your alignment says lawful good, you're trying to murder these puppies for no reason. You can do it, but I'm probably going to change your alignment as a result. Because alignment is not... It's putting the cart before the horse to act the other way. Alignment is meant to reflect what the character does. What the character does should not inherently reflect their alignment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean. It's conveying it to our friend Ultimo Dragon that's a difficult part. For example, there's a lot of things I've seen chaotic neutral characters do that it probably should be considered evil. Like stealing from the party, for example. And I've seen it slide. Like, because, they're chaotic neutral. Nah, dude, that's a pretty evil thing to do, is to take shit from your friends for yourself.
It's...
Like, it's not burning down an orphanage for literally no reason evil, but...
But it is pretty clearly on the I am really only out for me side of things.
And, but at the same time, in the same alignment of chaotic neutral, people accept... usually Robin Hood's the one they stick in chaotic good, whatever a step below that is.
Chaotic neutral is the alignment of the murder hobo.
Well, yeah, but I've seen a lot of people use it for really well-meaning people who just don't quite so much care about whether what they're doing is good or bad.
Like, say, like a violent revolutionary.
Like Jack Sparrow.
Or... I'm not going to use a real-world political figure because that's not what we do here. A violent revolutionary who wants to get rid of the current government. It's not really whether or not the government is good or bad. They just feel that the government is wrong politically, so they want to overthrow it. That would be chaotic neutral. Their motives are chaotic in nature because they want to spit in the face of the rules, and neutral because it's not really motivated by necessarily trying to be self-interested or actively altruistic. That's why that's important to mention, because a lot of people have neutral be the self-interest alignment. Like if you say my character's really just only in it for themselves, they'll hear that and they'll think neutral, because you're not really trying to do good for good's sake or evil for evil's sake. But that's not, unless you're an outsider, unless it's like a literal devil. Nobody does evil for evil's sake.
I mean,
some people do,
but
that's an exception. The vast majority of people are the hero of their own story.
And that's the big point. That's the big point that this conversation sort of, enveloped around when we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Is that, everyone's the hero of their own story. What was it? I think you said it even last week. Even
bad men love their mamas.
Exactly. So, I mean, okay, let's look at a horrible but really easy to pull comparison. The Joker.
Yeah. The Joker's evil.
The Joker's evil.
He's actively sadistic.
But there are many storylines and many interpretations where he shows a lot of love for Harley, or even a lot of fondness for Batman. Or that monkey that one time.
Yeah, or that one time the monkey.
You know, an evil person, you know, a selfish person, a person committing these acts is still capable of love. Like, barring a certain level of psychosis or emotional detachment or, you know, what have you.
Literally non-human origin.
Sure. Everyone is capable.
Everyone has an in-group.
Yeah.
Everyone has a group of people they consider important to them. People who are less crazy. Think of it as the people who are important to me, the people who I love. People like a violent sociopath, even they have an in-group. Because even they have a group of people they think of as theirs. These are my people, they belong to me. You're not allowed to fuck with them, only I may. So, everybody has an in-group. Almost everyone. Again, we're speaking in generalities. Assume there are exceptions tagged on to the end of all these sentences, because I'm just tired of saying it.
But the biggest point about there being exceptions is that they're small exceptions, percentage-wise. Or they're exceptions that, like, show off bad writing or simple writing.
Or there are exceptions that can show off excellent writing, but they have to be done really well.
Sure.
Because in the vast majority of at least D&D campaigns that I've seen, the exception is generally treated as the rule. And I understand why. You're trying to tell an interesting story that is best done with very dramatic characters, and the exception is more dramatic. It's more standout than the standard. So you want to use that. But you have to learn, as a DM, how to make... I hate to say... I don't want to say realistic. I've grown kind of unfond of that term.
Compelling.
You have to learn how to
Developed.
make compelling, understandable villains. I heard something described a while ago, and I think it helps get the point across. I don't think anyone would argue that Lex Luthor, most interpretations, the ones who aren't heroes in some sort of negative universe, Lex Luthor is an evil guy. He is. But if he's done well, just a little tiny part of you should be rooting for Lex Luthor. You should be able to understand his motivation. That's what you got to try and do as a DM, because if you give someone a villain whose motivations they understand, that will lead to better storytelling overall. Your players are going to be more engaged, and they're going to be more able to interact with your narrative because it feels more connected to them.
And that's basically what I meant by, you know, a developed character and a deep character. Now, if your role-playing group just wants to get together, throw dice, smite evil, not think, escape into the pattern of Dungeons and Dragons or whatever you play, that's fine. Obviously, we're not talking to you in that sense. You know, especially if you're playing for young kids. You don't need to start injecting, you know, the delicate balance of moral quandary.
Moral relativism has a place in role-playing, but its place isn't necessarily a table of 12-year-olds.
Sure. And, you know, there's nothing to diminish a bunch of guys who just want to kill orcs. Orcs are evil. If we see an orc, we kill it. We don't have to worry if it's got children and a wife back home, you know?
There's nothing wrong with that. I don't know that I would enjoy it as much, but...
It's a little empty.
But I don't gotta.
Yeah.
Like, I absolutely understand why you would do that. I have stuff like that. I'm not... In my personal, like, the fiction I pursue in my spare time, the stuff I read, I want there to be good guys. I grow weary of shades of gray, and even in my DMing, I want there to be good guys. I don't necessarily need those to be the player characters.
And you know, like, good should be a thing, and it's nice to be able to follow it now and then. You kind of, especially in today's fiction, be it TV shows, books, whatever, especially the popular stuff, you know, just big heroes is not really a thing we care about anymore as a people. And I feel like, for lack of contrast, it's diminishing what's there to ingest.
When everyone's the cool anti-hero, no one is.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, we look at people who, you know, bitch about superhero movies being on the rise, and we've talked long and hard about that, so I'll try not to get too far into it. But, like, that's really the only place where we've got, you know, really stand-up, good, trying to do things for the best reasons figures.
Mm-hmm.
And people are bitching that they've seen enough of it.
But on the same token, if you want something that's a little bit more, that has a little bit more moral relativism in it, that has a little bit more wiggle room for the player characters to be very flawed people who aren't necessarily actively altruistic. Because for me, that's what good is.
Yeah, altruism. It's doing things for no other reason than to benefit somebody else.
Because it is the right thing to do.
Sure.
And that's, because for me, that's the line. An evil person does something will do something just because it benefits them. And a good person will do something just because it benefits others. A neutral person is more likely to do something if both are true.
Yeah, or more likely to do something, because it seems like the best idea at the time. I feel like neutral is that alignment less about being selfish and more about
being open to being selfish, provided it doesn't overly negatively impact other things.
Yeah, and, good is altruism, evil is selfishness, neutral's flexible.
Yeah. And it's important to keep that in mind, because if you want a character who's evil, and let's say you want a character who's both very intelligent and evil, and they come across a situation where doing something that would benefit them is not necessarily the smartest move. It might be a good idea for you to have them do it, even if they're supposed to be intelligent, because at the end of the day, that intelligence is bent towards the goal of helping themselves, not necessarily doing the best possible thing.
Yeah, hubris is still a very active part of even an intelligent villain.
I love hubris as a motivation for villains because, one, it allows me to be bombastic as a DM, and I like doing that. And two, because it is so easily, I am prone to a bit of it myself, at least privately, so it's very easy for me to understand why I could have a villain make what is pretty objectively a mistake, and have it still be something that is entirely in character for them to do, even if they're supposed to be otherwise intelligent people.
Sure.
That's important to have as a DM. You need to have a reason for your villain to make mistakes. Because at the end of the day, you control the whole universe. If your villain doesn't make any mistakes, he's going to win.
To sort of sway this around into what spawned this in the first place.
I'm just talking, really.
No, yeah, that's fine. We're eating up time nicely, and I want to get to this before we're done. Right now, I'm playing a lawful evil character.
Yeah, and he's playing it really well.
He's not a bad guy, but he is a bad guy.
He is someone who holds very strictly to an ideology that essentially boils down to take what you want, give nothing back.
Sure.
But he follows it very strictly, and he follows it effectively because he's not going to immediately I want that, cup that guy has. I'm going to murder him and take it. No, he's going to try and buy the cup, and then if not, I'm going to see where'd you buy the cup? I'll go buy it from them. He doesn't immediately jump to the most ridiculous murder hobo response, and he understands that sometimes the best thing for him is investing in the future. That's an excellent way to play an evil character. As a player or as a DM, if you want to play an evil character, or you want to have an evil character in your campaign who's reoccurring, I heard it described like this. If you want a reoccurring villain in a D&D campaign who's supposed to be evil, and your player characters are, as most player characters are, not willing to bend, really, in the face of either greater force or good sense. A player character in D&D is far more likely to kill someone, even when it would be probably politically or socially a bad idea because that person's evil and trying to get one over on them. So your villain needs to be willing to make a choice. Is it better to be second or on fire? And if you want a villain character who's reoccurring, you want them to pick second. Because then they can become the treacherous vizier or something equivalent, and that's probably a better way to get it, to make them interesting and useful enough that the player characters won't murder them.
And for me especially, it's, the lawful side is what gives my character a lot of his motivational direction. It's to me, lawful evil has always been that phrase: the appearance of the law needs to be upheld, especially while you're breaking it.
And it's also that in that he is lawful evil, he understands what wasting resources is. As a for instance, his character wants to take over the city he's currently in. I've already made it very clear that he's physically powerful enough to just kill the governor and probably take his stuff. But even if he managed to then, get everyone else on his side and consolidate power, the bloodshed that would result would be wasteful because it would kill there would be a bunch of peasants who died, and a bunch of the city would be wrecked and all that stuff, and then the city he wants would be shittier. So he doesn't just go murder the guy because he's trying to find a way to do it without breaking the shit he wants.
All right, my character's actually been making regular rounds, buying bread, feeding the poor, trying to help guys get jobs who lost jobs and are homeless, because if the city trusts him, they will let him take that seat of power.
And if those guys are homeless, well, if we get them regular jobs, they're more productive members of society, so they're giving me more money once I'm in charge of the city.
Yeah, it's something I talked about super briefly. I don't even know if I mentioned on the podcast when we saw Thor Ragnarok. Something I really liked about Jeff Goldblum's character is that he's a reasonable despot. There's side characters who are always like, yeah, let's kill him. And he's like, no, why? That's stupid. What a waste to just kill this guy. That's dumb. What's wrong with you? I like that. I dig the fact that this guy is, in a position of power, clearly abusing his power to, do what he wants and create the society he wants to create. The betterment of others be damned.
At the end of the day, he's also, reasonable about it.
Yeah, it's not...
He's not overly ridiculous.
Sure. I appreciate that. It lends, an amusing depth to the characters. My character has no problem being pleasant to children and helping other people out. I wouldn't say he cares deeply about a lot of people. There are a couple that he would be upset if they...
He has an in-group.
He has his in-group, but, even then, it's more that they're super useful.
Which is how you can tell he's playing evil. As I said, they might not care deeply about the person, but that person is mine. You're not allowed to break my toys. I'm still using them.
And I doubt if he was if one of his allies got struck down, he would fly into a rage and kill their assailant.
I mean, he might kill their assailant anyway because you've killed one of my allies, so, you'll probably try and kill more, so I'm going to kill you now before that...
Can't have that.
You've cost me money and time. No, sir.
But it's not going to be this passionate, no, my good friend. It's just, dick.
I think if they took out DiMaggio, you'd probably do that.
I don't know, man. Maybe. He's very handy. DiMaggio is my major domo. He's a very handy fella.
He's his super butler, who is, because it is amusing, slowly growing extra-dimensional butler powers.
I'm doing my best not to take advantage of it.
Good, because he doesn't actually have them, and if you start trying to take advantage of it, they'll go away.
No.
The meme's only as funny as you let it be.
He's just part of my knight background. I've got him, and I've got warrior maiden that guards my stuff when I'm not around it because I'm far too rich to bother carrying all my shit with me. And I've got a young street boy who runs errands for me. And they're all my happy little troop. But I pay them well. I feed them. I want to make sure they're doing all right. Because if I don't, they will be upset with me and leave. And that's no good.
Because then you won't have them.
Yeah, I need those to do stuff.
You got to take care of your toys if you want to keep them.
Sure. And this character isn't breaking the game. I guess is the crux of this. We started this podcast
it's so
out.
Rare for him. He's baffled by the fact that he could have a character where they don't do that.
I've only did one thing so far where you made the face that you make when I roleplay. But no, when you run an evil campaign, it's always it never works out because this, that, and the other thing. That's not the case. I'm not just causing wanton, damage. And even in the other campaign that we've talked about ages ago on this podcast, that, oops, we were evil the whole time. It's not like we were just riding across the hills slaughtering innocents. We were playing a barbarian pirate king and the leader of the Assassin's Guild. And I've heard people who say they're playing those exact same characters, and they're like, oh, but I'm kind of good.
No, you weren't.
You run the Assassin's Guild. That's the killing people business.
Yeah, no, you weren't. I'm sorry. No, you weren't. Like, unless you mean assassin in the classical sense, in that you're not a hitman, you're a political murderer, and you're murdering evil politicians. That's the sort of classic assassin.
But are they even actually evil, or are you just murdering politicians you're being paid to murder?
Look, if you're playing a barbarian pirate king, and you can play that character who is good, chaotic good, but good. But you're probably, unless you're playing in a setting where all of the established authorities are shit. You're probably not, because you're probably overall making life worse for way more people than you're making it better for.
Which is a funny thing, and I mean, like this sort of proves itself what we're saying. You know, as you said earlier, everyone's the hero of their own story. Of course, your player characters aren't going to think of their characters, or your players aren't going to think of their characters' deeds as evil. Because they're doing it in the service of the storyline, the players, and the GM hasn't said, you can't do that, that's too evil. Thus, they must be good or neutral at worst.
For me, that's a sign of, if not bad DMing, it's a sign of uninvested DMing.
I think it's a sign of not taking alignments very seriously. And you know what? If you're also not the kind of DM who goes, you can't do that, that's not in your alignment, or says, well, he casts Circle of Protection against Chaos, you can't pass because you're whatever. Then
to be fair, that's in the rules. Like, that's how it works.
5th edition does it different now. It's just a Circle of Protection against people who would fuck me up.
Circle of Protection against things that I need protecting from, thanks. But, like, I can understand. Unfortunately, D&D is a system that allows you to cast spells that harm people who shine as evil. 5th edition does it better because it's people who literally are made of evilum to a certain extent.
Well, it's not even that. It's like, I think my smite only goes against undead. Like, I get bonus damage against them, but I can smite whatever the hell I want.
Right. Or, but you can, like, detect fiends and undead.
It's about detecting extraplanar creatures.
It's about detecting things made of pure blank. Like, undead are made of anti-life. They're made of dark, what gets dark side up in the morning. Yeah. And
I just see him sitting on a couch drinking a cup of anti-life. This is good. Yes, good.
But, like, and
looking through his family photo album.
Outsiders, like infernals, fiends.
Fairies, too.
Fiends, demons, and devils and such are made of pure evil. They're literally made of conceptual evil. That's cool. I like that as a DM. I like being able to use those characters who are just like a devil will definitely make a deal with you. But that deal's gonna fuck you over. Even though fucking you over is objectively the worst business decision, because if you make a deal with someone, you want them to do well, because that way you get more deals. It's objectively shittier for them to fuck you over before the deal is complete, but they're still probably going to do it, because at the end of the day, they're made of literal evil. I like having that option, but that's not what evil people do.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the alignment system, and I'm glad they have it, in place, because, one, it's a classic part of D&D, and two, it does help you sort of put a pin in where your character is motivated and what they're likely to do, so that you can communicate those ideas to your DM and vice versa.
It's a great guideline. It's a great way of. It's a great shorthand, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I honestly don't think it's something that player character or player should take too seriously.
If you've got responsible players at your table who say, "Hey, man, I'd like to play an evil character," they're probably not going to be what you're thinking they're going to be, which is just that guy who is trying to fuck over the party in every way possible.
Put your knees back where they go. There's no need to jerk them around. It's fine.
Now, if you've got an irresponsible player who you've seen play chaotic neutral like a scumbag and is like, yeah, I'm going to be evil, don't let him.
I mean, side note, why the fuck are you playing with that?
Yeah, why are you playing with that guy? I mean, that's we have to. He's our DM's little brother.
We have to. He's our DM's little brother. No, you don't. Go play somewhere else. Y'all, the rest of you got houses. If you're not adults, go play the library. Like, don't. Well, this one is one where I don't have a lot of wiggle room of, do what works for you. No, I take role-playing. Role-playing's too important to me. You cut fucking toxic people out of your role-playing group. You'll enjoy yourself more, and I'm sure they can go find a bug to pull the wings off and enjoy themselves more too.
Or find other like-minded people and...
Yeah, you know... ... Maybe we can set up a prisoner's island of shithead D&D players. I got no fucking time for toxic people playing role-playing games. I got no time for it.
Please say the outro. I can't keep talking.
Everything's better when nerds talk about it.
Fuck it, let's get high.